Tonight, on Person and Person, the power of cops compels you.
Nanananananananana BAT MAN.
COVID shots are coming to town.
It's the Great Pumpkin, Greg Person.
A 3-hour tour, a 3-hour tour, a 3-hour tour.
Bustin makes me feel good.
All these stories plus world news, spooky weather, and the Hamburger Cup. That's tonight
on Person and Person.
Good evening, wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome to Person and Person. I'm Gene Person.
And I'm Greg Person.
No relation. Person and Person is a news show for people who don't like news shows, by people who don't like news shows. No lofty aspiration to journalistic integrity here. We pick and choose the stories we talk about. It's funnier that way.
I gotta come up with a funny line for that.
Enough about our show. Let's pop the cork on tonight's stories. It's main news. Our first story tonight, cop performs exorcism. A Florida sheriff's deputy was arrested. His name was Christopher Doherty, 37, on child abuse allegations on the same day that he was fired for an unrelated matter. Picture the scene. A girl in body armor and a Kevlar helmet is on the ground in shooting position with a rifle, okay? A boy is armed with a taser as the police break in to arrest this man. The children told the investigators he was performing an exorcism on the boy and relayed to the girl that there were demons in the home and gave her explicit instructions to shoot anyone who entered. So the relationship between this man and the children is unclear. Is he the dad? I have no idea. It certainly wasn't reported. Is it better or worse if they're just two random children?
Well, one thing we know for sure, the man's relationship to meth is very clear. You could even say crystal clear.
I mean, but he was a cop. Does that really happen?
I don't know, but
maybe in Florida.
From what I've... Yeah, it's Florida. It's Florida, the Michigan of the South.
Also, what kind of exorcism was he performing? It certainly wasn't the Catholic rite.
No, more like the Catholic wrong.
Right. Well, there are fewer guns involved in the Catholic rite of exorcism. I also want to know about this unrelated arrest. The official statement was that it was unsatisfactory performance in a separate matter. He was placed on a mental health hold after the arrest, and that seems appropriate. Teaching kids to kill demons is just a first step on a slippery slope to teaching kids to kill unicorns, and the world already has enough confetti.
Well, I will say, though, that that's the pilot episode for a lot of great shows. So maybe we just let him run for a while and see what happens.
I was kind of hoping the image of the cop would resemble Bill Paxton in Frailty.
I never saw that one.
Instead, he just looks like a cop. Like the coppiest cop who ever copped. Midway between like fit and dad bod, he looks like the kind of guy who would run a squirrel over on purpose.
You hate to see it.
Yeah, randomly start a bar fight. He was definitely a high school bully. He definitely played football. He could probably work at Les Schwab when his prison sentence is over.
Well, looks like the only pads he'll be touching for a while are the padded walls of his cell.
Or brake pads if he decides to work at Les Schwab. My final question is he like, how does he get the kids involved? Is he like the world's crappiest Pied Piper?
You know, kids, you can pretty much bully a kid into doing whatever you want.
I guess especially if you have a badge and a gun.
Right, that's like 90% of parenting.
On to story number 2.
Here's one a little bit spooky for the spooky season. But apparently, it's not just for Halloween. This one's been going on off and on for years. There have been sightings of a large humanoid bat creature in the Chicagoland area, Chicago and surrounding suburbs. Most recently, a post office worker at O'Hare International Airport was menaced by the bat creature that screeched, charged, and flew off into the night. But this is only one of dozens of sightings that have gone on in the last several years. as detailed by a really excellent organization I found online, the Singular Fortean Society, that's been keeping track of all these Batman or Mothman sightings.
I've heard of the Forteans.
I think these are like a Great Lakes offshoot.
Yeah, no doubt.
And they're doing just awesome work. I felt like I should have a corkboard and some red string as I was reading all of these reports, because there have been at least dozens of sightings, people from all walks of life, all over the upper Midwest, but especially the Chicago area.
Greg, I have a question. What you're describing, what does this bat creature look like?
Well, it's about 7 feet tall, or some people say 4 feet tall. So estimates range between 4 and 7 feet.
So somewhere between 4 and 7 feet tall.
Right. They do say it's got glowing red eyes and wings, thin little limbs.
This sounds like Mothman.
Yes, and I know that as a moth stan, you're familiar with the Mothman story. But for our listeners who might not be, so there was a similar sort of creature that was sighted in Point Pleasant, West Virginia years ago. And this all ended up being tied to a bridge collapse somehow. So there are some people who believe that sightings of the Mothman foretell tragedy. But I gotta say, in the year of our Lord 2020, do we really need the Mothman? I mean, it's gonna be tragedy, right? We know that.
That's pretty much.
We wake up in the morning.
Yeah, it's daily life.
Yeah, it's just unending horror. Like, even the Mothman is like, goddamn.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna posit something here. Maybe in West Virginia, Mothman was foretelling tragedy, but maybe Chicago's just his home.
I mean, that would make sense, because there he would see a lot of human misery, and that's probably what set him on his life path.
Yeah, you go out somewhere, you present ominous omens, portending disaster. You got to have some place to call home. Sweet Home Chicago sounds good to me, and it probably sounded good to Mothman.
I will say, though, that if he is trying to warn us of impending tragedy, he's got to figure out a better way to communicate. It seems like the pattern that everyone's reporting is it screeches, it charges, it flies off into the night. It just seems very first grade to me.
Right.
That's playground behavior that you would expect from a 6-year-old, not for some weird fortune-telling cryptid. I don't know what sort of behavior we are supposed to expect from fortune-telling cryptids, but as the saying goes, this ain't it.
Yeah. I mean, it's the 21st century. Mothman, send a text message.
If the Mothman can tell the future, is it because he's from the future? And in the future, are we all Mothmen?
I think John Keane would posit that he's more of a timeless being. But anyway, it's fun to think about. I have an idea for how they could catch Mothman.
Oh, go on.
A giant lamp.
Yeah, that could work. Maybe that's why he gravitates toward urban areas. Is he sees all that urban light pollution, and he's like, oh, I got to get me some of that. So maybe
I wouldn't exactly call Point Pleasant, West Virginia, an urban area, but
well, no, but I mean Chicago. Chicago makes sense.
Yeah.
But I wonder about, because I wouldn't say that I believe in cryptids. But there's all kinds of weird stuff out there, and it did make me think, though, thinking about cryptids, thinking about the future. What are the cryptids of the future going to be?
Oh, right.
When the biosphere is well and truly dead and all the animals have gone extinct, I think our grandchildren are going to be seeing horses and raccoons and not know how to describe them. So they're going to be like, well, it was like a man, but it had 4 feet, and it was between 4 and 7 feet tall. And it had a long face, and instead of toes, it just had this one big hard toe.
At any rate, it's going to be better than the Slender Man mythos.
I don't know. Slender Man was good for about 5 minutes.
Right.
Those 5 minutes were in 2007, and now it's time to move on.
That's exactly my point. Mothman is persistent. It has stood the test of time. Slender Man was over in a minute.
Well, like you say, Mothman is timeless, like Willie Nelson.
I'm just picturing Mothman with the braids.
On stage with Willie and Merle.
Yeah.
I could see it. What's our next story, Gene?
U.S. abandons plan to immunize Kris Kringle. So this story officially broke in the Wall Street Journal. There was a plan in the current presidential administration to immunize mall Santas and Mrs. Clauses in exchange for propagandizing the COVID vaccine. $250 million campaign that sort of fell apart. They were scrapped by the HHS. The Fraternal Order of Real Bearded Santas apparently were extremely disappointed. But nearly 100 Santas had already volunteered at the point that this was all falling apart. So, is this a quid pro ho ho ho?
Nice.
Yeah, I had to get it out of my system. I don't know what to find more alarming, the enlisting of mall Santas for propaganda, or the readiness of mall Santas to participate.
Well, I mean, I don't want to burst anybody's bubble out there in podcast land, but the whole idea of Santa is propaganda. I mean, all these Santas are in on the greatest lie ever told.
And what pray tell is the greatest lie ever told?
I mean, do you want me to say it out loud on the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, I mean, Santa's not real in the fullest sense.
What?
And oh shit! I'm sorry. This is exactly why I asked.
What the hell?
Well, the important thing, Gene, is that your parents love you very much.
You just can't come out here and say that Santa isn't real, Greg. It's not. I won't allow it.
I understand your frustration, sir, but it is what it is. I mean, there is a guy who lives in Lapland who is sort of the official Santa of the world.
Is it because it's Lapland and kids sit on his lap?
Right, that's why they sit on Santa's lap.
You can't really blame the Santas for wanting the vaccine, I think, because kids are little vectors. The list of things that little Gene has done, let me give you just a quick rundown. He sneezed directly in my open mouth. He has spit directly into my eyes. He has coughed into my cup of coffee, which cough and coffee sound very alike, but those are two things you do not want to be connected.
No, for sure. It sounds like raising a toddler is like being at a G.G. Allen show.
Still, it doesn't feel like a 21st century strategy for propaganda to me. Person-to-person communication it's really more of a boomer thing, and boomers were parents back when word of mouth still meant something. I mean, some other advertising I can think of when boomers were prominent was highway signs, speaking one word at a time like in Looney Tunes, or having the Flintstones hawk the vaccine while smoking a Winston. All it would take, I think, is one Kardashian. It's 2020. We'd rather take advice from a total stranger that we feel like we know.
Well, we know that person-to-person communication is out, but you know what's in? Person-and-person communication.
You're goddamn right.
So I'll tell you what's up. Health Department, Department of Health, whatever you want to refer to yourself as, we are here. We will propagandize your vaccine for you. All we want is we want to be the first recipients of the one that doesn't make you insane.
Right. The one that doesn't make you feel like God is dead and that you have to kill everyone in the room.
If you please. If it's not too much trouble.
I'm bearing my arm now. And here in the USA, we have the right to bear arms.
So switching gears a little bit, I want to talk to you about pumpkins.
Okay, let's talk about pumpkins.
You know, they're central this time of year. We carve them, we decorate them, we chunk them. We also weigh them. Specifically, there is a World Giant Pumpkin Championship that was won this year by an American, Travis Geiner of Anoka, Minnesota. He grew the largest pumpkin of 2020 at 2,350 pounds, for which he won $7 a pound, which was $16,480.
Well, that's quite a hefty prize. Did he squash the competition?
Oh my gourd, I can't believe you said that.
You're playing along!
He didn't manage to break the world record, though. There was a $30,000 prize for breaking the world record, which was set in Germany 2016 for 2,624 pounds. But, you know, this guy, Travis, actually is a pretty cool guy, and his story kind of has the beats of a good sports movie. He learned to grow pumpkins at his father's knee. His father was also a pumpkin grower, I believe competitively. Travis himself, having caught the gardening bug from childhood, became a horticulture teacher. He worked, he trained, he watered these pumpkins up to 10 times a day and fed them plant food and mulch and the like constantly to get them up to the size, and then, drove them from Minnesota all the way to California for the big weigh-in. So I think we should maybe break down the sports movie that we're going to make on this story, make it into a Patreon episode.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's got, all the drama of your Rockies, your Major Leagues, your Bring It Ons.
Your Caddyshacks.
Now, you might be asking yourself, as I did as I was researching this story, what do they do with the pumpkins when they're done with them? Because, there were a lot of competitors at this contest, and none of these pumpkins weighed less than a full ton, right?
And as I understand, when they grow that big, you can't really eat them.
No, well, here's the thing, is some of them you can. Some of these big vegetables are donated to wildlife refuges.
Oh,
where
sure.
They go to feed some presumably very grateful animals. Now, in the case of giant zucchinis, they often make like Pinewood Derby racers out of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I actually saw pictures of them and they're pretty cool. I encourage all of our listeners to get on the internet and see if anything comes up when you type in zucchini car. One method of disposing of the pumpkins that I really loved comes from the Colorado State Fair, where they get a giant construction crane, they hoist them hundreds of feet in the air, and drop them on the ground. It's the greatest spectacle ever devised, and I can't wait to go there next year, which I fully intend to do, just to watch the dropping of these giant pumpkins.
So I have a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And this may be kind of extreme, but what if you took the world's largest pumpkin and you cut it open like you would for a jack-o'-lantern, except you left it whole, scooped out all the insides, and filled the world's largest pumpkin with the world's largest pumpkin spice latte? Is that like Googling Google?
That's wrong on so many levels that I assume that the hand of God would literally come down from the sky and stop you.
Okay, so we'll table that for now. That's fine.
Put it in the maybe pile for sure.
Okay.
Another thing that I found that they do with some of these giant pumpkins is to hollow them out and make canoes.
A pumpkin canoe sounds like an incredibly fun afternoon.
It's an extremely Roald Dahl way to spend an afternoon for sure.
Right.
Incidentally, I've actually grown the world's smallest pumpkin. You can't see it, which is how I won.
Story number 5. Billionaire accused of blasting Gilligan's Island theme at a neighbor. Billionaire Bill Gross, who made his money in bonds, is in a legal battle with his neighbor, a tech guy, over a $1 million sculpture of lighted glass. The neighbor complained it partially blocked their ocean views, and then things got tense. The neighbors filed code complaints with the city. Things escalated, and Gross allegedly, I stress allegedly because he's a billionaire and I have no money to speak of, Gross allegedly began blasting loud music and bizarre recordings various hours of the day and night, including the Gilligan's Island theme, on a loop. So first question, given the fact that he's rich, and look, I'm no professor, but do you think Gross calls his wife Lovey?
Well, see, he's considerably richer than Thurston Howell III, right?
That's true, because Thurston Howell was a millionaire, not a billionaire.
Right. Which isn't even an especially, noteworthy thing to be anymore if you're running in these kind of circles. Like, millionaires park these guys' cars.
But you gotta think, Gilligan's Island aired in the 60s and 70s. If he was a millionaire back then, he's likely to be a billionaire now.
This is kind of a tangent, if you'll permit me. Do we know how Mr. Howell made his money? Do they ever talk about it?
I have seen so much of Gilligan's Island, but it was so long ago that I actually don't recall.
Well, and here's the other question, because he has this kind of a posh Boston Brahmin accent. Did he even make his money Or was it made by some like Dutch slave trading ancestor 300 years ago?
Yeah, I'm going to assume it was the latter. It would be funny if he made his money with coconut husks and bamboo. You know what would be really funny? If the sculpture that Gross and his neighbor were fighting over was made out of coconut husks and bamboo.
But I assume that it was made of something ruinously expensive.
Lighted glass, yeah. And apparently Gross is in the process of getting the proper permits for the sculpture, which had not been secured at the time that all of this transpired. It reminds me of a scene from The Sopranos when they buy a beach house. I don't know if you remember that. It also reminds me of the Baby Shark story we covered in our first episode, which also reminds me of my life. So I guess what I'm saying is at least my kid isn't stuck on TV themes yet.
Well, do kids shows even have TV themes anymore, or is it just...
Oh, they have catchy TV themes. Catchy. Have you heard the opening credits to Paw Patrol?
No, I would never watch that. ACAB, including the Paw Patrol.
Well, I don't have any choice, man. And it is a catchy theme, as is the theme to Team Umizoomi. And
you made that one up.
No, that's a show. That's a real show.
A real show.
Yeah, Blue's Clues, Umizoomi, Bubble Guppies. Oh my God, Bubble Guppies.
That sounds adorable. I want to watch that one.
That one maybe has the best music out of the three. I feel like we're really going off on a tangent here. Another point, I like the idea of bringing the Gilligan's Island theme to a gunfight. I like the intensity of the petty one-upmanship between the wealthy. It makes me smile.
What do you get for the man who has everything? Someone to hate.
Yeah, out-of-control trolling. I aspire to that level of pettiness. But I don't have the bankroll, so what can I do? If I ever do strike it big, though, watch out. TV theme-based supervillain coming your way.
Well, there were a lot of great TV themes when we were growing up. I still remember all the words to the theme from Perfect Strangers, which to me is one of the most inspirational songs ever written.
Sure. The point is, if I do become this TV theme supervillain, after striking it rich in the biggest bonanza of all, I'm going to come on knock on your door. I'll use different strokes, and I'll move out to Beverly Hills, that is. By the way, Greg, thank you for being a friend.
Well, if you threw a party and invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, "Thank you for doing a podcast." Now, I want to bring it back to the spooky to talk about the Center for Spiritual Research, which is a scientific organization and not a cult. They've determined recently through science that 90% of gay people are gay because they're possessed by ghosts of the opposite sex.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there, Greg.
Please do.
This cult...
No, scientific research organization?
This cult of scientific researchers...
Yeah, the word research is right in the name, so you know.
Okay. Can you run by that theory one more time for me? What they're positing?
Yes, so lots of people are possessed by ghosts, apparently. And
okay.
if the ghost is of the opposite sex of the person being possessed, then that's going to make them, the possessed person, begin to have homosexual tendencies. It's also going to lead to higher incidence of swearing, public nudity, and murder.
Swearing, public nudity, and of course murder, things commonly associated with homosexuals?
Yeah, well, it's in the research paper. I don't know what to tell you, but they did find that there was, and it's not necessarily the strongest correlation, but they did find a correlation between being possessed by a gay ghost and saying naughty words, being naked in public, and committing murder.
So here's my other question. Are females really known for these three things? Because let's say I'm possessed by a female ghost. Mm-hmm. Do I have to watch out for that? Or does this apply to lesbians too, and then it's just both genders are equally good at swearing and getting nude and offing people?
Well, the way I'm thinking of it is, if you're a human, right, and your fantasy of being a ghost and possessing people is that you can finally do all the things that you wanted to do without consequence. So you can strut around naked, you can cuss people out, you can murder. We've all had those fantasies, and these ghosts are finally able to act them out by possessing people.
Oh, I see.
Right.
I see. So it's just the license of them not actually facing any consequences that lets them do all these things. I understand.
Right. I mean, ghosts, they're stuck on the earthly plane because they have avoided the judgment of the afterlife, and now they have no judgment to fear at all. So they're just going buck wild. Ghosts are gross as hell. They're rowdy as hell. Which actually leads me to my second point, which is that this is an excellent premise for an adult film. So let's break down that story for a special episode on the Patreon.
Okay. Yeah, it feels like the special episodes are going to be filling up pretty quickly.
Yeah,
are you sure this is good for an adult film? I like an adult film as much as the next guy, especially if it has swearing, public nudity, and murder.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with ghosts too. Do we really need to involve the cult?
It's a scientific research organization. They have a picture of the founder on their website. He is wearing glasses and holding a book. So
okay, well, it's hard to argue with that.
I mean, a cult leader wouldn't wear glasses. Only scientists wear glasses.
Which is why we consider David Koresh a scientist.
Yeah, he was. So, yeah. The other question I had though about this story was, why is it only 90%? Are they admitting the possibility of just real, regular gay people, or is there some other force that's making people gay apart from ghosts? Because it's weird that ghosts would be by far the most common explanation for anything. So,
what if the other 10% are still possessed by ghosts, but those ghosts are also homosexual?
Oh, so does that... So the person is straight because the ghost is acting gay?
No. No, the person is gay because the ghost is gay.
Right, but the ghost was gay because he was possessed by a straight ghost of the opposite sex.
Right.
Okay, so that explains why increasingly you're seeing more gay ghosts than you used to.
Right. Well, and plus the population increase as time goes on, the population gets bigger. And we don't want to assume just a subset is born with homosexuality when the population gets bigger. No, it's the 10% of the world's population increasing because of the number of gay ghosts.
Right, absolutely. And over time, we're going to have to figure out how to bust these ghosts, but that's going to be the subject of the film that I'm writing right now.
All right. Well, I'll let the Academy know.
It's not going to be that kind of movie. Let Vivid Video know.
On to our supersized world news.
World news.
Woo! Okay, our first story, gay penguins stealing eggs. In a story that probably made Alex Jones go out drinking to celebrate and get another DUI, gay penguins in a Dutch zoo stole an entire nest of eggs from a lesbian penguin couple. Fostering, I guess, is really common in the penguin community. The lesbians probably were gifted the unhatched eggs from a straight penguin couple. Since then, the boys take turns keeping the eggs warm and looking for food, but zookeepers say there's a good chance the eggs weren't fertilized in the first place, so the pilfering may never bear fruit. The chicks may never hatch. First question. These penguins, possessed by gay penguin ghosts?
That's literally the first thing that popped into my head was, well, is it gay penguin ghosts? Or is it gay human ghosts who just want to wear formal wear all the time?
Well, that spirals into a bigger holistic question. Can we be possessed by the ghosts of animals? And can we be possessed by the ghosts of gay animals?
Yes, because furries.
Oh, sure. I want to say, in regards to this story, it is 100% heartwarming to see that homosexual fostering is encouraged in the penguin world. Less so the stealing, but the best thing about this story is the wholesomeness, in my opinion. Just a bunch of penguins, mating for life, same sex or not, who want to raise kids. It's not something expected of everyone, but I certainly support them in their desire to be parents. Again, less so in the stealing.
Well, but it seems like the original owners of the egg are cool with it. There's no takebacks in penguin
Yeah, if there's
fostering.
one rule in the penguin kingdom, it's no takesy-backsies. Zookeepers do say they're going to steal back the eggs and distribute them between all parties involved, rewarding the burglary, but also giving some solace to the grieving mamas. Oswald Cobblepot could not be reached for comment.
So I want to tell you, if you'll permit me, about an amazing invention coming out of Slovakia.
Bless you.
I'm ashamed of myself for laughing at that right now. But there's a flying car that they've developed. It's got retractable wings, a maximum altitude of 1,500 feet, and is absolutely guaranteed to kill anyone who comes near it because it's a flying car.
And that's just going to be a death trap.
Right. It's underpowered for a plane, and it's overpowered for a car, and it's got all this weird crap hanging off of it.
If I were going to choose a country to build a flying car, I don't know that Slovakia would be anywhere near the top of my list.
Oh, come on. You're going to tell me you're going to discount incredible historic Slovakian inventors like...
That's what I'm telling you.
All right, well, I don't know. Seems a little suspect to me. The thing is as a culture, we've got to all agree to let the dream of the flying car die.
I agree.
Because the reason it worked in the Jetsons is that they had no visible means of propulsion. They just kind of tooted along.
Right.
And if that's how those things worked, it would be great. But like an actual airplane, there's a reason they make people do that for a long time before they'll even let them do it by themselves. I mean, I'm not a pilot, but I know it takes some doing before they'll let you pilot an airplane.
Definitely. You don't want to, I mean, there's a lot of traffic up there. You don't want to be, one little vehicle could cause a whole lot of mess.
And not to mention, 1,500 feet is not that far off the ground as airplanes go.
No.
So this doesn't seem like you're going to have a lot of wiggle room if the engine stalls on your car plane. So it's a bad idea. It was never going to work. Put it with the food pills and the housekeeping robots. Unworkable ideas from a paleo future that will never come.
Yeah. Our next story, in the Philippines, a police crackdown of a cockfighting ring has gone horribly wrong. So, the Philippines has banned the popular and horrific sport of cockfighting during the global pandemic. During a raid on a cockfighting ring, an officer was killed when an angry cock cut his femoral artery, causing massive blood loss. He bled out en route to the hospital. The raid yielded 3 arrests, loads of cash, and 7 fighting cocks. Mostly I chose this story so I could get to say cock a lot.
So, these cops, they really went hard on this cock ring, is that right?
Oh yeah, those cops were down on all the cocks.
They'll do that.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
I have mixed feelings about everything involved in this story, honestly, Greg. It's disgusting to me that the practice was only outlawed during the pandemic. It's horrible that this is kind of a national pastime over there. But also, no lie, that is a terrible way to die. It's also kind of funny. So I'm all twisted up in knots over this. I don't like the experience of laughing at someone's death. It's not something I will normally do, but I kind of have to make an exception for death by chicken.
One thing we can say for sure is the whole situation was a real cock-up.
Yeah. And I feel like if I laugh about this too much, I'm just going to come off as some kind of cocky asshole. But the thing is, I've gotten to say cock like a bunch of times, so I'm willing to overlook the fact that I'm laughing at someone's death. My final questions are as follows. Guess what? Chicken butt. Guess who?
Who?
Chicken poo. Guess what for?
What for?
Chicken's going to tear you open through your femoral artery, and you'll bleed out on the floor. Back to you, Greg.
Well, here's another vehicle story from the Netherlands this time. It's sort of a callback to our previous week's episode. Scientists in the Netherlands have created the world's tiniest boat. It's 30 micrometers wide, which is a third of the thickness of a human hair. They also made one shaped like the Starship Voyager, which would have been cool, but they didn't have photos of that one in the article that I read. The purpose of building this little boat, can you guess what it was?
Tell me it wasn't to deliver some kind of drug payload up someone's ass.
Yep, It's a new way to build little boats to smuggle drugs inside the body. Apparently, there's a lot of that going around these days.
You're serious?
No, yeah, I absolutely am. They built a little boat that is... Okay, I've just sent you the picture of the world's smallest boat.
Oh my god.
Apparently...
It looks like Donald Duck's boat.
Well, and the cool thing is that this was done with an electron microscope, this picture.
Wow.
And apparently this model is something that they use to test 3D printers, which I thought was kind of neat. But the goal of this, is to deliver payloads of drugs into the human body, presumably through the colon. And it just it caught my imagination right away because I kind of love the way that this one weird and extremely specific thing has apparently seized the imagination of all the world's scientists.
Right. We used to try to put people on Mars. We were trying to, cure all kinds of nasty diseases, but now it's really just all about getting a high through your ass.
We choose to put tiny drug robots in your ass not because it is easy, but because we are hard.
Delightful.
Absolutely.
All right, well, a new type of weather brewing here in the studio. It's time for spooky weather. Now that Halloween has passed, we've got a large front of decaying pumpkins on the horizon, Greg. And that often portends two things: magic and Billy Corgan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, despite all his rage, he is still just a rat in a cage.
I was thinking, despite all his rage, he is still just a practical mage.
Oh, like Sandra Bullock.
Any of the Bullocks, really. Seth Bullock, Sandra Bullock, Bill Bullock, John Bullock, Sandra Bullock. Unrelated. She lives in Idaho. You wouldn't know her.
Sure. Just like Mrs. Person, just like Mrs. Jean.
One of these days, Mrs. G. Person is going to be a guest on this podcast, and you'll know for sure.
Well, I look forward to meeting the voice of this totally real person who definitely exists.
I look forward to that too.
So what else is in your weather tonight, Gene?
Well, we've heard scattered reports of the cold weather cracking local sidewalks, and I just wanted to warn our listeners, be careful out there. Your mama's back will thank you.
Well, I've noticed a few strange omens this week in the spooky weather report. The first thing, the ceaseless howling of coyotes in the dead of night, even though I live in suburban Connecticut.
Yeah, not something you want to hear.
Where do they come from? No, I mean, I'm asking myself, where do they come from? Where do they go? Where do they come from? Cotton Eye Joe.
God damn it, Greg.
In other news, other omens, my pee has blood in it, and vice versa.
So your blood has pee in it too.
Yes, my blood has pee in it. And you know what the fucked up thing is? It's not all mine. Some of it, not all of it.
Yeah. I've been
chasing some pretty weird dragons, Gene, and I'm not proud of it.
Let me say this, Greg. You're in trouble.
That's very good. I appreciate that. I award you 2 comedy points.
I love the comedy points.
Lastly, this morning, a tall man in a black suit showed up at my door with a contract signed in my handwriting. I don't recognize it, but that certainly looks like my signature, and it looks like my blood. So I'm going to have my lawyer take a look at it, and I'll let you know how it goes.
You should run that through a mass spectrometer. Make sure there's an appropriate amount of urine in the blood.
Right. That's how we're going to know, is we're going to put a black light on it, like on Dateline, and then if it's my blood, it'll have pee in it. So
right.
That's how we'll know.
Well, as you know, listeners, every week our investigative team presents a detailed and harrowing story on food crime. This week, Greg Person has the story.
All right, folks, this one is about Buckfast Tonic wine, which has been called the Scourge of Scotland, and to quote The Guardian, is imbued with supernatural powers of destruction. Buckfast wine is a fortified wine-like beverage that is loaded with caffeine, 280 milligrams of caffeine per bottle. And it is just the source of.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, good God, I need to get some of that caffeine.
Well, I'm not so sure you can, because it's not 100% legal in the United States.
Oh, okay.
We did ban caffeinated alcohol a few years back during the Four Loko fiasco, and this would definitely qualify as that.
Yeah.
There are importers that you can buy it from. I found out earlier today, but they will definitely make it expensive for you. $63 a bottle when I looked online for a wine-like beverage that is described as tasting like a cross between grape juice and Benadryl.
Okay, so grape juice extremely sweet, Benadryl extremely bitter.
Yeah, but it's two great tastes that do not taste great together, according to all reports. Now, Buckfast is also known as Lurgan Champagne, Commotion Lotion, and my favorite, Breck the Hoos Juice. This is the stuff that is literally. They did a survey of Scottish prisoners who had committed crimes while intoxicated. How many of them do you think had been drinking Buckfast before they started going wild and had to get arrested?
I think all of them.
Well, actually, it's only 40%.
I can't believe it's actually 40%.
Yeah, 40% said, oh, we'd had a few pulls of the Bucky, and it all went sideways from there. Now, what's fun about this is that Buckfast is named for Buckfast Abbey, which is run by Benedictine monks, who were the first ones to develop Buckfast wine, and they don't produce it anymore, but they still own the license for it.
You know, I haven't followed the Benedictine monks since I was actively watching Sherlock, so what are they up to these days?
Well, apparently brewing fighting wine. That seems to be what they're about. The funny thing is, as I was reading about this, the monks, they hate the reputation that Buckfast has for crime and mayhem, and they put it down to anti-religious sentiment. So, you know, for a person who spends 8 hours a day on Twitter, it's hard to find the worst bad faith argument of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's it.
I think it's a contender for sure.
I mean, you know that people don't want to ban this wine because they hate Catholics. They do it because they don't want to get glassed in the face.
Right.
And
right.
I can't blame them.
Well, and you don't want to get glassed when you're in Glasgow.
No, indeed. Absolutely not. So, not so much a food crime as the root of all food crime in Scotland. And hoping someday I'll be able to afford a bottle, because I absolutely will drink at least some of it and give you the rundown on air.
Fantastic. I look forward to that. I will be in a separate, undisclosed location.
That's good. Safety first. You got a family to think about.
Folks, it's been a long road to the finals for both Big Mac and Five Guys. It's hard to believe it's finally here. As we come up to the edge of the competition, I want to remind you of the criteria officials used to judge the contest: bun, patty, condiments, look, taste, and special teams. All score on a scale of 1 to 10. I met up with the main competitor from Five Guys earlier today as he was fielding questions from the press. So, Mr. Guys, did you think you'd make it this far? What do you think your chances are of winning? Are there any strategies you're going to employ to fend off the Mac attack? As you heard, Five Guys staying tight-lipped and playing their cards very close to the vest regarding the coming contest. Back to you, Greg.
Now, before I move on to my portion of the segment, I do want to clarify that Five Guys is not, in fact, named after Five Guys, but by a guy named Five Guys.
That's correct.
Huh. Good to know. Learn something new every day.
And on to the main event. Round 1, composition. Greg?
So, it starts, as any burger does, with the bun. Now, these are a fairly even match, different styles, but each distinctive and beloved in their own way.
Judges rating Five Guys at 8.
And the Big Mac also at 8, even Steven.
So on the patty, multiple odds sites rating Five Guys as having the advantage in this competition. And you got to wonder if the two patties from McDonald's are going to come through or if the handmade giant sized patties and Five Guys are going to fall apart on them. No, it looks like the judges have rated Five Guys at a 9.
While the Big Mac only pulls in a 7, there are two patties, but let's be fair, they're kind of small and kind of gray. So the two patties only gets it as far as 7, it looks like. Now, in condiments, here we see the Big Mac take the lead. It does have that special sauce. Now, I've actually gone behind the scenes and learned how this sauce is made. You can find it on YouTube. It's not really worth the effort, but it is what makes the Big Mac so magical, and it's no surprise, a perfect 10.
A perfect 10. Interesting. Five Guys falls short at 7. On to round 2. Round 2, of course, is overall package. We're going to start off with the look. Big Mac polling way ahead, looking exactly like it does in the photo on the placard. Mac pulls off another perfect 10. Oh my God. It's going to be hard for Five Guys to recover from this.
And that's the thing to remember about the Big Mac. The look is iconic. It's architectural. It's a piece of mid-century art that is recognizable the world over. So no surprise that they got the perfect score there.
Right. Five Guys pulling in only 5. Oh no. It might be trouble in the kingdom of Mr. Guys there.
A little bit of a gap opening up for sure. The next and arguably most important category, overall taste. You put the burger in your mouth. What does it taste like? Now, in this one, Five Guys does have a slight advantage. It's fresh, it's juicy, they have a huge variety of toppings to choose from.
On the other hand, the Big Mac, notoriously consistent in overall taste. You can order a Big Mac at any McDonald's in the nation, pretty much get the same damn sandwich.
It's true, and that's, when you want a Big Mac, you know exactly what you want and exactly what you're going to get, and you can't understate the importance of that.
Looks like Five Guys pulling in a 9. Great score. Will that be enough to pull them back all the way? Time will tell.
Oh, looks like no. Looks like the Big Mac only coming in with an 8.
Ooh, it's getting closer. Round 3, the final. Special teams.
Now, with the fries of these two competitors, you have two very different experiences. I mean, with Five Guys, you have the option of going regular or Cajun. It's a thicker, more steak-cut fry.
And certainly they dump a lot of them in the bag.
Far too many. I have never eaten as many Five Guys French fries as I've received.
And if you ever want to drown in French fries, order a large.
Oh, man. It's like Scrooge McDuck. You're the Scrooge McDuck of French fries when that bag comes, Gene.
Whereas McDonald's is famous for their golden fries. It could be anyone's race. This is for all the marbles. Let's see how it comes in. Yeah, it looks like Five Guys has pulled an 8.
And the Big Mac, the McDonald's pulls an 8. I am on the edge of my seat, literally. I have paid for the whole seat. I am only needing the edge right now.
Final average is coming through. It looks like Five Guys has scored 7.66.
Strong. Let's see where the Big Mac ends up. Ooh, an 8.5 altogether. That perfect 10 on look and condiments really made the difference.
And that's enough to win it for the evil empire of the sport, the powerhouse that is the Big Mac. Five Guys turning out an impressive performance. Nothing to be ashamed of here, but just falling short. I'm not sure I've ever seen a tighter contest, Greg.
Well, it's like I said at the beginning of the bracket about David and Goliath stories. There's a reason why it's a legendary story. The giant is supposed to win. Now, the Big Mac is a really idiosyncratic burger. It eschews a lot of the features that every burger seemingly shares and has some that none of them do. It shouldn't work, and yet somehow it does in a big way. It's all over the world. There was, in fact, the last time anyone bothered to check, there was a Big Mac sold every 17 seconds somewhere in the world. Honestly, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the end of the Big Mac. No surprise they came out on top. I'm not disappointed or elated, just hungry.
And I'm famished too, Greg. Our final segment tonight, as every week, is Person to Person in Person, where we share your valuable feedback with our audience. This week, we've got another email from Little G Person, one of our favorite listeners, who writes, "Dear my heroes that are somewhere on my list of favorite heroes. How are you? I am fine. I want to find you on my favorite podcatcher. Insert podcatcher name here. Can I do that? If not, when can I do that? Thank you. You guys are almost the best. Little G Person." Hey, thanks, Little G. The short answer is that the process has already been planned, and you'll be able to catch us on Insert Podcaster Name here after we drop episode 4 next week. Once we go live on the podcatchers, we'd love to ask all of you to subscribe and rate us on the podcatcher of your choice, especially if you use Apple Podcasts. Signing up and throwing us a positive review and rating will go a long way toward getting word out about our show, and that can only mean better and more content for you in the future.
Good to know.
As few of you as there are right now, we love our listeners. We appreciate our listeners, and we're really excited about going live. During the next episode, we'll remind you, but I wanted to ask the favor early, because we need all the help we can get.
Smash that like button, fam.
Do you have a letter tonight?
I do have a letter. It looks like it's from Pretzel Person, my dog. It reads, "Treats, treats, 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 outside, outside."
Well, Pretzel is the unofficial third person on the podcast.
Oh, he's going to be a lot more official when they listen to this episode. I don't think there is a single minute that hasn't been interrupted by this dog desperately wanting treats.
Folks, that's all the show we have for you tonight. We invite you to participate in Person to Person in Person, and there's so many ways for you to get yourself heard. Send us an email, personinpersonshow@gmail.com. Drop us a voicemail, 541-249-5933. Find us at Twitter, @AnchorPersons, and on Facebook, @PersonInPersonShow. Until next time, this is Gene Person saying you should always end a comedy set with a callback.
And this is Greg Person saying, Cox. Good night.
A 3-hour tour, 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 a 3-hour tour. A 3-hour tour, a 3-hour tour,